the races. Guys, welcome back to another episode of Always Making. We have Christy and Juniper in the studio today.
Hi. She's sleeping.
We'll see if she interrupts these podcasts again. Guys, but I just want to start off by thanking everyone who's been tuning into the show so far. We're on our 16th episode here, and we've had over 10 guests on the show, which is super awesome.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like we just started this thing, and all of a sudden we're 16 episodes in. Like,
yeah.
what?
It's really cool. Thank you to all the guests that have been on the show to share their stories, their journeys with us. Not only us, but you guys as well. And we get into some great conversations, but we want to do kind of a catch-up episode here and also kind of a tips and tricks and everything in between episode on how we are getting ready for market season.
Yes.
And maybe some of you guys are looking to get into the market season. And for some places across the country, market season does go year round. We do have like winter markets and stuff like that. But because we're here in Utah and it does get cold, outdoor markets change a little bit.
Yep.
There's not as many shows. And then the big shows really do start coming out like late spring, early summer through the summer.
And I feel like even across the country, that's probably pretty universal. You start having more festivals and fairs and things that happen in the summer when people have more free time and the daylight hours are longer and it's warmer. So yeah, weather's warming up and we are getting ready for market season.
So before we get into some of our stories there and tips and tricks and everything that way, I do want to do a little bit of housekeeping. Guys, if you guys haven't already seen it, we have put our first tutorial video out on how we make stickers for those markets and shows that we do, and kind of sharing some tips and insider knowledge that we have. We've been doing the stickers for over 3 years now and using the machines that we use for quite a while. And so we thought that'd be a great way to introduce like our tutorial videos to you guys. And we do have some other tutorials lined up. We'll be filming those and getting those out shortly after this one goes up. And then if you guys haven't already, like, subscribe, comment down below. And that helps us out a lot.
Yes.
And on that tutorial video, we do have affiliate links. So if you do end up wanting to try to start your own like sticker business or anything like that, those links.
Or you want to pick up any of the tools that we mentioned, we have them all linked to an Amazon shop. So you can shop our Amazon links, and it gives us just a little bit to help us grow our channel.
Yeah, those costs, there is no added cost. There is nothing different. We just see a little bit of kickback from that when you do purchase using those links. What else housekeeping wise? I think that's it. Follow us on social media at Steadfast Rebels.
The
usual. And again, commenting and liking and subscribing to the channel. It's been awesome. Like we are super stoked to see everybody who's getting involved with it, and we just want to say thank you before we kind of get into this episode here. But okay, I think that's enough for housekeeping. And we're gonna get into it. Want to go over some catching up. We've been getting into some new like hobbies. What's new?
Experimenting with some new DIY, making artistry, fun things.
And this goes into getting ready for show season. Kind of during the winter time, we kind of buckle down and kind of like go family visits, and people are coming into town, having the newborn kind of changed up. But we know shows are on the horizon. We know they're coming down the line. And so we want to have some new product. Some of the shows we previously did these past couple months, it's kind of clearing out old inventory, stuff that we maybe don't go through as quickly at shows, or last year we tried it out, didn't work as well. Christy, what are some of the things with your inventory of stuff that you kind of go through to say, hey, let's kind of maybe change this up or like discount this? What's some of your process?
I really kind of look at it in two ways. Number one, I look at, what has, I feel like kind of run the gamut of what I'm going to sell. Like, all right, I've been selling this for a while and I feel like sales on that item have slowed down. Maybe we've saturated the market, or maybe it's just something that's not trending anymore. So that's something I might look at saying, well, maybe we kind of pull back on that, offer less, or pull it out of our inventory altogether. And then the other thing is, a lot of times I might just lose interest in making something. I might decide, you know what, I'm really kind of sick of making this, or I don't love making this anymore. It doesn't bring me joy, and I don't think I want to sell it anymore or make it and sell it anymore. So those are kind of the two things I look at when we're talking about not selling something or pulling things out of our inventory.
And so going into bringing new things into our inventory and some of the stuff we've been working on, you've picked up a ring bender.
Yes. We picked up a ring bender. I mean, yeah, metal bending. I suppose you could use it for other things too, but primarily for ring bending.
Yeah, you find them out online as ring benders.
Yeah, it was like one of these things we saw and we were like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then we looked it up on YouTube and saw someone using one and was like, well, that's something pretty easy. I think we could do that ourselves. And then we got it. And then we went to the thrift store and bought a bunch of rings. And we were working on making spoon rings.
Well, not
or we bought rings. We bought a bunch of spoons.
To make rings.
To make spoon rings.
It's one of those things where silverware, there's a lot of stuff really inexpensive wise. Now there's the actual silver side of things, and then there's the stainless steel, and like you can get into some really fancy, beautiful silver pieces from silver flatware. But we're looking at another outlet of creativity with that tool that came in, and it's kind of been like, okay, we need a couple things. And honestly,
I was gonna say it's already like branched off because we started like, okay, let's get some spoons, we'll experiment, we'll do some spoon rings, and then of course you go down the YouTube rabbit hole and we start looking online. We're like, oh, well, we can also make like these cool spoon bracelets and maybe pendants, and now we're just gonna have a whole line of like stainless steel silver jewelry because that's what we do.
Yeah, and so that's one of the things we got ourselves into recently, and it's been occupying the table and the workbench. It's not an expensive endeavor, and again, one of these tutorial videos that will be coming out will explain all the stuff we get to kind of work in. But honestly,
that one will probably be a little later down the line when I feel a little more confident talking about our process, since we literally just started doing this ourselves.
Yeah, we got a very small little hobby belt sander and grinding wheel, and a few jewelry tools. And honestly, we're like still under $100 for everything. And then the ring bender, fortunately, we did get an offer for it, and so it was free to us.
Yeah. So that was an easy way for us to be like, okay, well, let's jump in, let's do it.
Yeah,
for sure. But
it all said and done, like what we've purchased in material and then tools. And if you do add the ring bender in there, there's a few brands I was looking there, like about $40 to $60 for a starter one.
It's not crazy expensive. It's pretty easy to get into.
And so about $150 investment you can get yourself. And the thing is, you really don't need the ring bender if you got some muscle to bend it as well. Because you can do, and there's a lot of tutorials online that we've gone down that rabbit hole with, of bending flatware and silverware with a hammer and a vise, and you can get into it even cheaper in that sense.
Yeah, and like we just picked up a metal ring mandrel, so we can work with the rings on the mandrel, and that was very inexpensive as well. I think it was $15.
Yeah.
So. And
then the jewelry coping saw was $12, I think.
Yeah, something
and
like
so,
that.
And that's just a few items we purchased to get down that hobby. And I mean, we've explained this on here before. We've shared that knowledge of like investing in tools to make your craft is going to be a little bit upfront, but those tools will last you a lifetime of making. And it really will like enhance your capability of what you can do by just
and
making that small investment.
You sell a handful of, the products that you make, and the items pay for themselves, really.
Yeah. So. But that's one thing we got into. And then come to find out, one of our neighbors was into ceramics, and they're kind of redoing their whole basement from what I had conversation with them. And they were getting rid of so many slip molds for ceramic casting. And
so how many times were you over there, Derek?
Well, they kept putting stuff out on the curb, and every time they kept putting stuff out on the curb, I went and got like a couple dollies of slip cast molds.
I mean, like at least 3 trips, right? I think more.
I think it was more, but yeah, they were telling me that they got a semi truck loaded with slip casts years ago, and they still do it. They still but they're just kind of clearing house on ones that they just weren't using. And I think at one point there's probably like 200 molds sitting outside of their house. And I think I maybe grabbed about like 25 molds of things that I thought, hey, would be cool.
It feels like a lot more.
Yeah. I want to go down the ceramics a little bit. I don't necessarily want to like go hard into the paint with ceramics. But the molds, we've been looking at alternative things to use the molds for. And so one of the cool things we're attempting and we're seeing, and we actually have some outside right now drying in the sun.
Literally as we speak.
Yeah. We have some paper mulch, or paper pulp. Sorry, not mulch. Paper pulp.
You really just kind of
molds?
Yeah, slap it, press it into the molds. We chose a few of them like flatter designs, I guess you could say, that we think we could like turn into some art pieces with the paper.
Yeah, so recycling the paper that we've already been getting ourselves into, and then going down this rabbit hole with the mold making and seeing where that kind of goes and doing some experimenting, testing with that. And so that's some of the new things, and then still everything else we're doing as well. You were just playing with resin stuff because of the belt
which
sander
is still
we got.
Also fairly new. Because I don't think we've sold any of our resin pieces yet, but I've been experimenting with that over the winter.
About a year,
yeah,
I think.
Less than that.
It hasn't been quite a year of it, but
anyways,
we got the belt sander recently, and so you were able to kind of clean up some of the work you were doing on. But that's again another thing that's on the bench. But this market season we're getting into, we're gonna have some cool new stuff to kind of mess around with, and going back to old projects that didn't quite get finished last year. Also, we're working on those. I was working on some leather pieces that we had processed probably about a year ago, maybe a year and a half ago, and I just never got back around to finishing them off. And so kind of have some ideas on how I wanted to finish those pieces. So those are coming to the markets as well. But that's been what we've been kind of toying around with, on top of everything else we make, all the other creative things, and still all the other shop sales and stuff like that have to get done as well.
But yeah, really excited about new stuff coming for us this year.
And I think that's, as you guys are doing markets and getting yourselves into it, if you are a veteran market seller or a first time market seller, one of the things is to kind of change up a little bit of what you do, just so that freshness is there in your shop when people come by. I've seen plenty of shops or stands or booths where it's been the same thing I purchased from them 3 years ago, and I haven't seen anything super new or and so I like say hi, but I kind of walk past and don't really give it much attention. And I know for sometimes it's one of those things where, like, at shows you meet new people, and those people don't see it, but a lot of times it's repeats coming through. And I like supporting artists that I've already purchased from, but if I'm not seeing new stuff, it's kind of hard to be like, well, I already have your stuff, I don't know what else to do. So it definitely, like for us with the stickers, we are constantly putting up new fresh stickers. With the print work we're doing, it's constantly new fresh stuff. So at least, like, if we're seeing some of the repeats at some of the shows that we are repeating constantly, we're at least showing an option of fresh stuff. And so this year, again, we're going to be doing a lot of the same venues we did the last year. And I just want to offer new things. And it keeps, I think, us interested in the craft and not getting kind of that like burnout of like, oh, we're making the same thing over and over and over again.
We're good.
So
yeah, well, and it's also exciting to be able to like see people that have been to our booth before and be like, oh, check it out, we have this new, this new great thing that we're selling this year that we weren't selling last year. Or, people come in and want to know what's new, what's been going on, and we can say, oh, well, we've gotten into spoon, rings, or we make our own paper now.
Yeah, because that paper was not a thing we made last year at any show. So that's also a new thing that's coming out this year for us as well. But as we get into the spring and summer season here with shows, one of the things that we run into a lot of times and that we want to like tell you guys to be aware of is applications for shows start very early.
Yes.
So hot tip for you guys looking to get into shows for the summer, get into shows, like every year I go, oh, that's such a cool show, like that'd be great. And then I realize they're like,
oh, we completely missed the application deadline
by months, because we're thinking, oh, hey, this show's not till July, we probably can sign up in June and get there. Well, Joke's on you.
Yeah,
is
not the case.
the signups were in January, and when we're looking in May, we're like, oh, we've missed it by a few months. So what we've been doing these past couple weeks is we've been applying to show after show after show, and just trying to see which ones are going to let us in, which ones we get accepted to, which ones fit. Some of the new ones we're trying out. We're seeing if it's going to make sense for us for the future. And
and also like making sure we stay on top of shows that we've heard about from other vendor friends who are like, oh yeah, I did the show last year, it went really well. So we're like, okay, we got to keep that on our radar when they open up applications. We want to try that show, or you know.
So the big thing to be aware of when getting started with these shows, getting started with art markets, is if you find an art market, stay on top of their social media, stay on top of their websites. If they have a website that you can go to and they have dates there, put them in your calendar with reminders, because it's very easy for us to forget. Christy just the other day was asking, hey, did I sign up for that one? Because it was like one of those
literally like, oh, we can't forget to apply for this market. And he's like, you already did that application.
She's like, oh yeah, that's right, we did that application. Because it is, if you guys are trying to make this a full-time business or trying to be on top of it and get yourself out there, it will come so quickly. Like there are...
Well, and there's so many markets, or at least I feel like in our area, there's so many markets that sometimes they just slip through the cracks.
Yeah. And like, it feels like there's a new market every week on social media popping up, which is great and awesome to see that the art community is thriving and there's a lot of these places. But the thing you have to be aware of is the applications for some of these places. You can't just show up the week before and hope you're going to get a spot.
Yeah.
Some of these, go ahead.
Well, I would say, so quick tip, one thing that I've been doing is we're on Instagram a lot. We follow a lot of the markets on Instagram. And when I see that they post, their show, their upcoming market dates or application dates, whatever, I'll save that. And I have a little, what's it called? Like a group collection, whatever they call it on Instagram, of just for markets that I've saved. So I can go back to that and be like, oh yeah, am I forgetting any? Did I remember this one? Did I remember that one? So yeah, I have a little saved folder, if you will, of markets.
Yeah. And one of the things to take in consideration, if you are going to do a big show like a Craft Lake City for us local Utah people, it is a higher price for entry kind of thing.
The booth fee.
But there is a higher foot traffic like that you get to come through than some of these smaller shows. So we're getting to the next little bit here of information is, if you're budgeting for bigger shows, understand where that return is going to be. So these smaller shows, we love doing small shows, but we might only get 500 people to come through that show. And we only might get a return, but it might not be as big as some of these bigger shows. So what we like to do, and we like to be in about maybe 2 or 3 big shows that cost anywhere from $200 to $400 for a booth fee. One of our biggest shows was just about $1,200 for the booth fee. And it was a okay return. It wasn't we learned a lot from it. It was our first year doing it. We'll adjust for the next time we do the show and maybe not get such a big booth or try to change where we're set up for it.
But some of those things you really just have to kind of learn by trying it. Yeah. But you never really know how a show's going to go.
I would say, just so you are aware, because that show, like Craft Lake City, is in August.
Yes.
I'm trying. It's like late July, early August. It's August.
It's usually mid-August, like 11th, 12th, 13th, somewhere around there.
Their applications end in April 1st, I think, is when their deadline.
Yeah, they're open now.
They're open now. If you're watching this before April 1st, I believe that's when the deadline is. But there's a small fee for the application. And a lot of places that are bigger shows like that will have an application fee. But no, if you do get approved, that payment could eat up at your other shows as well. So just be aware of how you're budgeting for the bigger shows, because they're going to be so far in advance, you're going to forget about them when the payment's necessary for it, kind of thing.
Right. Yeah. The payment's going to be due pretty well ahead of time.
Yeah. But again, making that small investment now is going to make a bigger return at those shows. I've talked to a lot of the vendors when we're there, And I haven't talked to any vendors that hasn't profited from doing a big show like that.
Yeah. I feel like most of the vendors we talk to make their booth feedback the first day.
Yeah.
And it's a 3-day, event.
It's when you do the bigger shows, it's a lot more daunting. It's a lot more effort. But you get the foot traffic. That's really where like it outweighs all of it, because the foot traffic just coming through, there are more people competing with you, but it is one of those, like, you're going to get a lot more people coming through and checking out your stuff than you would at some of these smaller shows.
And I will say, for a show like Craft Lake City that's really well organized and well run, they'll try and balance out, like, okay, we have so many jewelry makers, so many, pottery artists, so many, like, they'll try and balance out the number of different types of artists or makers that they have, and they'll spread them out throughout the venue so that it's not like a row of jewelry makers and they're all competing directly next to each other.
And that's also part of like why these places are asking for applications, is they don't want 100 jewelry people at a show, because it's not a jewelry show, it's an art show in the sense. And
that wouldn't be fair to the vendors.
Exactly. And so we have run into a couple shows where we have such a diverse, unique thing. It doesn't matter if there's more jewelry or more prints or stuff. We have a variety of items that we offer. But like for a person who is just doing crochet work and they are there with 10 other people with crochet work, which most of the time they're using patterns that are available online to the masses, you kind of see the same crocheted bee, or you see the same crocheted frog, or stuff in those kind of natures, because frogs, bees, mushrooms are very popular. And so it becomes who has a better price, and it kind of hurts the market. But if these places are getting these applications and they're only allowing 3, and that you're one of those 3 that come, it's a much better market. So a lot of times where like it might be frustrating to apply and not get in, just know it's these places trying to make sure it's kind of a fair situation for everybody vending that does pay the higher price to be there in those kind of sense. Small shows though, even the small shows we are coming up against have early registration as well. For SLC Punk, our favorite show that we do, we have been doing it now. We're going to be going on the 3rd year now of being with them.
I think this will be our 3rd summer
with them.
Come July,
And we don't make it into every show. They do diversify their groups that come through, and when we do get to be in the show, it's really great. But their applications are usually like right after the next, like the show ends, and even before, there's a waiting list of that kind of stuff.
Yeah, because that's one that happens like monthly or every other month. It's pretty or regular, I should say.
Yeah, and so being on top of that, and again, social media is going to be the key for like unlocking that potential of getting into these shows. Being aware of when they're like happening, when they're getting into applications, will help you a lot. And I can't stress it enough. If you guys are right now thinking, hey, I want to try this summer to do a show, get on their website of that show that's local to you, or their social media, and see when dates are getting locked in for the application.
Yeah, start looking now.
Yeah, because a lot of times, most of these summer shows, the applications have already opened, or some of them have already opened and closed in some senses. Some of the shows we did not make it into, they've already closed their applications, and like there's 30 spots and there was over 200 vendors that applied, and that's okay. We didn't make that one. That just opens up our weekend for a different show.
Yep, we'll try again next year.
There are a variety of shows that do come up that are weekly, and the weekly shows, we'll get into some of that, is a little easier to potentially get a last minute spot because of the I guess turnover of vendors that would be at those shows.
Yeah, like, or availability.
Because we did Brighton and we did Ogden's farmers market, and they do have sometimes spots that are open on like that week before, because they are going from I think it's Memorial Weekend to Labor Day weekend is usually their like
it's usually May to September. Yeah,
their summer season for both of those shows right around there. So you have some vendors that are there every weekend, we made the choice last year to go once a month just to kind of fill out these shows and see how they work for us. So that means our spot that we're not there is a potential for another vendor to be there.
Yeah.
And sometimes they don't fill up. I know as we got towards the end of the season, we started seeing some fatigue from vendors that are doing it every weekend
Yeah.
or multiple shows a week.
Yep.
Start to like, hey, I need a break. I need a mental like vacation kind of stuff. So again, let's get into that as well. How do we balance that, like not overdoing ourselves with shows?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it's one of those things you kind of just have to figure out for yourself through trial and error. Last year, we knew that I was pregnant and that I would be obviously more pregnant later in the summer.
Well, the funny part is when we applied for the shows, we didn't know you were pregnant.
Some of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
true.
we did try to plan certain things, and then we're like, whoa, that changed everything.
Yeah, but for the like weekly markets, we knew, and so we tried to kind of plan accordingly and say, well, we don't want to like overload. We knew I was going to be tired. I was going to be very pregnant. It was going to be the middle of summer and very hot. So we kind of tried to not overload ourselves with markets in that sense. But I think everybody just kind of has to take in their own considerations, whether it's, if you have another job or if you have family commitments, everybody has life going on outside of their
Businesses or
business,
side
so
hustles or any of that stuff.
you kind of have to figure out your own balance of what works for you and what's going to feel like enough to sustain a business, but also, enough to sustain yourself, enough of a break to be able to balance everything.
Yeah, we tried to go about 3 shows a month is kind of what we were kind of gaming. And we overloaded one weekend where we did back-to-back shows so that we're like, okay, we're not going to be these 2 weeks. We're clear of stuff. But then we also had some soccer game tickets that just happened to land on the same week. And so it went from one show to a soccer game to the show early in the morning,
Yeah.
leaving everything in the car in the parking lot.
And going back to like not necessarily knowing from the beginning that I was pregnant, we also had the like 1 month where it was like, well, this is the only time we can go to California where our family is and travel there for a baby shower or multiple baby showers. So it was like, okay, market, travel to California, baby showers, come back, market. Like it was just
August was our craziest month last year. And I mean, again, it is hard work. And I know like there's a lot of things that like once you run your own business, you really never take a day off kind of thing. And it's true. And we've talked to many of the vendors here or not vendors, but guests on the shows about how much effort they go into than the regular 9 to 5. In some cases, they're working more, but it's also a different return on value to your life. Kind of thing. It's not you might not be making as much as you do potentially at a 9 to 5, but like you are your own independent, free, creative, mentally stable, adulting stuff.
and you're spending your time hopefully doing something that you love.
Yeah. And I mean, if it's not for you and you take the first year and maybe markets aren't your thing, that's fine. There are some of the vendors, or again, I keep saying vendors, the guests we've had on the show, they just do Etsy. And that's okay. And then some of the makers we talk with and meet up with, they don't even sell at places. They kind of just post their stuff up that they want to make, and they get inspired by other people. Or
maybe they do like 3 or 4 big markets a year and that's it.
Yeah. And that's a thing. Okay too. But as you get more and more involved in this market world, you will learn some ins and outs from your own experience. And again, each location that these markets are at are gonna be different. Is there things that I guess like, what are the things you would recommend people who are getting into this market like season get themselves like invest in to make it a little easier for them?
I would definitely say number 1, a comfortable chair, because you're not going to want to stand the entire time. You're going to be standing a lot, obviously. You're going to be up and talking to people and moving around your booth or your table or whatever it may be. But you're not going to be standing the entire time, and you're going to want a comfortable chair so that you can sit. I mean, it sounds pretty basic.
Take
but
a
like,
break.
Yeah, exactly. Like something that, can fold up and fit in your car, something that, you're going to want to sit in that's going to give you some, a bit of rest in between standing, in between talking to customers. Definitely a good chair. A big water bottle or some kind of like water jug that keeps water cold, something along those lines.
I forget how big or like it's not 2 gallons. It's a big giant
at least
Yeti that keeps
maybe it's a couple liters. I don't know. It's
our water very cold and nice during the summer season. But also like it might seem like a cost up front, but it's really not that crazy. Totes that are uniform in size help so much. And a small dolly. Whether it's one dolly. Of the like small luggage dollies, like depending on the loads you have, one of the like folding wagons. I've seen a lot of people utilize those. We have what's called a rock and roller dolly. I've used it in video production. And the best part is it folds like about maybe this small, roughly. For the small like, compact one.
For people listening, it's like 12 inches wide by like, when it folds down, maybe 20 inches.
Yeah, I don't.
And not very tall either.
And so it's really
6-8 inches tall.
But it expands out and holds larger boxes and larger totes. And the ideal thing about having uniform sized totes and the dolly is that you can stack everything in a safer situation than like we've had it happen to us because we weren't doing this tip. But we've seen it multiple times
so
where
many
people are rushing out of a show. They're tired. They're done with it. But they
trying to get all their stuff to their car in one load because they don't want to make multiple trips.
And it's overloaded and like things are sideways, left and right. And it just, they hit a bump and it falls over and then products on the floor.
Stuff just goes everywhere.
It just becomes, but the thing that has saved us multiple times is that a uniform like stacking tote has been beneficial to keep things from falling over. When you hit
it sounds
bumps.
kind of like silly or overly simple, but it's honestly true. Like when they are uniform and they stack nicely, it really does help keep everything in place.
Yeah. And so we have made small investments and it's not really, they're not super expensive. There's so many good options out there at your local, like hardware store or like Costco is where we got a lot of our stuff from, because they have such great prices and like there's usually a 3-pack or a 4-pack for a reasonable price. And then we have 4 identical totes, or if we buy 8, the 8 identical totes. And it's been very beneficial. And then
I was gonna say real quick along those lines too, keep in mind what your capacity is, both like for your vehicle or however you're going to be transporting your items, and also for yourself. Like if you know you can only carry so much weight, don't buy the biggest totes. Like have multiple smaller totes that you know you can lift and carry yourself if that's what you need to do.
That was the big thing. Like when I bought all the totes, I wanted them to be like easy for you to carry, so I'm not overloading you, but also in the sense of like, okay, only so much is going to go into this tote and we're not going to, again, overload that and become a problem and like, oh man, I need someone to help me. Because great, we have our support of each other at these shows to carry or double, like carry something that's heavy. But recently I've been doing shows solo because of the baby. It's like, okay, I need to make sure I can carry this stuff. And like if I'm loading in, some places you might go to might only have stairs that have the loading area.
Yeah,
like,
you never know what the loading situation is going to be.
Yeah, if you haven't been to some of these locations, you're trying to figure out how you get your stuff in, what your setup is, and go through the motions that way. But those are things, if you're getting started with all of this, make those small investments. It will save you huge in the long run, because even if you guys get out of the market business, totes storage is great to have around.
Yeah. Throw your holiday decorations in there. Throw your old, whatever
in there.
Puzzles, board games.
Well, I have like some of the totes we don't use anymore. They're like bins for paper pulp and they're dye bins for us now and different things like that. So like some of these bigger clear bins, you're like, oh cool. They stack into each other. They sit in a corner when we're not using them, and they've come in handy for multiple other uses as well. Yep. But that's, I would say, some of the things to make investments in as you get started in this like market world, if this is the thing you're going to get into. What else, as we get into this market season that's coming up, are we doing to prepare for some of the stuff we've got coming?
I think one of the big things we've been talking about is really what we want to sell this year. We kind of touched on this earlier, but if, we've been talking about like, well, are there things that didn't sell well for us last year that we want to maybe not try and sell this year? What new thing, we have new things coming in. How are we going to make space for these new things? What do we really want to sell? What is going to do well for us, hopefully, this year?
Yeah. So as again, we expressed this multiple times that we have a variety of things, and some stuff works well, and we adjust and kind of figure out what's going to be the thing that we keep going. And it's a hard decision because we take everything we do. We're very proud of all the stuff we make. It's very cool. We want to share it with everybody. But sometimes we make things that are kind of just for us, and it doesn't really go anywhere. And that's one of those hard decisions that we're going to be like, well, that nerd thing that I really was so obscure and no one really knew what it was about. Maybe we shouldn't invest that much time into these.
Maybe that one's not for markets.
Yeah, and that's more for us and stuff. So it is a difficult thing as makers and artists, and you put all this time into what you're making, and then sometimes you just kind of, it's not that you throw it away, but you put it to the side and go, hey, this isn't going to work. It's hard to do in that kind of sense.
Or at least just, it can be something that you keep doing for your own enjoyment, and that's fine too.
Yeah. And the thing is, we have stuff that's piled in a corner, like I was talking about these leather patches earlier in the episode. Like, they are there, and the season might have not been right for them when we first put them out, but that doesn't mean, if you're still doing this a year from now, 2 years from now, that you have that inventory that's still there. Bring it back out. You might have a whole new market crowd that comes through and sees it completely different. Or when you go to other shows, like, that is one of the thing. If you're doing multiple locations, multiple shows, the people are going to be different that come through. The crowd is different. Some of our stuff sells better at certain shows than it does at other shows. And we make adjustments for that as we go. And so, hey, this stuff sold really well here. Let's put that out and focus heavy that direction. So try these things out at different shows. Take notes. I use Google Keep for my note keeper, and throw ideas in there all the time, and just little bits of like, oh, this worked here, this didn't work here. And like, try it out. But be very... not methodical. That's not the word I'm looking for, but
intentional.
And I guess intentional maybe with like what you're doing when it comes to what you're selling at these shows, because it's gonna be different every single time. We can't give you all the right answers because each show we do has a different audience that comes through. Also, like, it has a different income level as well that comes through as so there are some people, like, at certain shows, prices are slightly higher because we know the people coming through those shows are going to potentially look for art is stupid and weird in that sense, where
it's subjective.
It's subjective, but people think higher price, it's more artistic than if you sold it at another place, kind of thing. We want our pieces to go across to all kinds of multitude of people, but it is one of those stupid consumer marketing ploys that you have to take into consideration. It's like, hey, I'm at an art show with art folk, kind of air quotes. And like they'll see a $20 piece and they're like, oh, kind of thing. But you could put the same piece for $100 and they're like, oh my God, this is amazing. I'm like, oh, people, like, I just like making stuff. Like, if you want to support at whatever it is. But that is one thing to be aware of. But you got to keep your audience
in mind.
And where you're selling, and kind of the crowds that come through. And just be aware of these different shows that you're attempting to.
Which is not to say that you should devalue your art at all. If you think you're at a show where like, oh, it isn't selling, maybe I need to drop my prices. Like, no, if it, took so many hours or cost so much materials, like, you should definitely be getting paid what your art is worth. Yeah. Like, don't devalue yourself at all.
That is a big thing I see more of for like first time starting artists, is that you do a piece that like you've spent hours on. I was talking to a guy who's drawing all his t-shirt stuff, and he was selling t-shirts for $20, and his t-shirts were taking him 6 to 8 hours to like make one t-shirt. And I'm like, no, dude, that's like so not okay. You need to increase that price. But a lot of artists, we all lack the confidence that we have that our piece is worth what it is. And I understand that we suffer from it just as much in those cases. But at these shows, you need to understand that the value of what you've put into it needs to be expressed on that price tag for your pieces. We are very fortunate where we have a lot of the stuff we do in-house and we keep our costs at a very reasonable price for everything we do. But like, if you're spending 6 to 8 hours on making something, it should reflect in that price. And if it doesn't sell that first show because it was $100 and there wasn't, that doesn't mean the next show it's not going to sell to the right person. It's just finding the right audience for what you're doing. And know that, like, let's say you are at $100 price tag on your piece. If you have to drop it a slight bit, still make sure it's worth your time. Like, there's always times to discounts. We love throwing like bundles and discounts and things at people, and we give away product to people, and there's like, why are you doing it? It's like, we can afford these like adjustments that we make because we understand what our price point is on some of these things. But don't undervalue your work. Don't go and sell it for less than what you put into it, because it's gonna turn you away from this kind of market world because you spent $80 and sold it for $100, but it didn't sell, so you sold it for $60. There's no room to really make that profit for you to move forward and continue going that at a loss for that.
Yeah. Another tip I want to bring up is, we've been talking about not knowing necessarily what you're getting into every time with every market. And it's a lot of trial and error. But one thing that you can do is look and see who's maybe been at that market in the past. It might be someone that you're friends with on Instagram, and you can just shoot them a DM and be like, hey, I'm thinking about doing this market. How did it go for you last year? What do you think of it? How was it? How is it? We've said this many times before, but the community here is really, really friendly and really open to helping each other out. And I hope that would be the case in most places. So
I want to believe that's the case in most art communities.
It doesn't hurt to reach out and be like, hey, I'm new to this. I'm looking at this market. I saw you did it last year. What do you think about it? Or do you have any advice for me?
Yeah, with a lot of the guests that we've talked to on the show, it has been one of those, hey, we got into it because of so-and-so, or where I had a question here. And so anytime someone comes up to our booth and has a question about getting into it, or like, who do I talk to? Like, we are more than happy to be like, check it out. Here's this. What can we do to like point you in the right direction?
We'll overload you with information. We're so excited about it.
Yeah. But it is one of those, don't be afraid to ask. Like, people, if you're at a show and you want to potentially be at a future show for that same event, ask people who are there. Find, like Christy says, find them on social media. We all are trying to market ourselves at these shows and bring attention. So you'll find like people who have older posts, and it's not stalking if you're going through their posts to try and figure out some information.
No, absolutely. Or even, like when you follow a new account, it'll say like other people that follow, that same account. So you could see like,
if they've been at that show.
Oh, this is that other artist I saw, and they're following this same market account. I wonder if they've done this market,
Yeah. Most of the time, and again, I want to believe this is at most art community and most art shows kind of stuff and markets, that if you reach out and ask someone how their stuff went, they're more than happy to real quickly respond and like tell you it was great, it was awesome, oh, it wasn't as good, kind of stuff. We've shared our insights with people, and we've gotten people involved in certain shows, and then it's super cool to see them there. And it doesn't hurt to ask. Like, asking a small question will get you a lot more information than you just kind of...
Yeah, because worst case scenario, you ask and they don't get back to you. Well, you tried. There's nothing, no harm done.
No harm done. But that is some of the stuff as we are going forward with the market. And we wanted to give you guys some information and share some of our... not even pitfalls, but just some of our... things we've run into, experience,
things we've learned.
Yeah, on that, and some of the things we've been getting ourselves into, some of the stuff we look forward to in the market. Is there anything in particular that you're looking forward to this year?
Oh, goodness. I don't know. I think I'm excited about our new spoon rings, honestly, our spoon jewelry. Silverware, flatware jewelry.
And
it's been really fun experimenting with it.
Seeing what happens with that. And I mean, I think the thing I'm most excited for going into this next season of market and stuff is figuring out this whole thing with Juniper and how the car gets loaded now, how we do shows if we're like doing them together or we're doing them solo or what in that sense. And we are looking at a lot of new markets that better fit our location area instead of making some further out drives that we were making for some of just so that we're closer to home in case of anything we need to be back here for reasons. But I think that it's that I love the kind of the adventure of the unknown in that sense.
Yeah, I was gonna
and
say it's gonna be a whole new adventure this year.
Yeah, like I'm a weird prepper and like I need to have my boxes all in order, all my like specialty tools in my bag, like what kind of stuff. Like I also like the idea of like the game of Tetris where like what's gonna fit in the car, how's this gonna go here, packing it all up and like be as efficient as I can with as much as I can.
Oh yeah, we're both really like, I don't want to say bad about that because I think we both think we're really good at it, but it's something we definitely both love to do is like, how can we fit all of these pieces exactly, and make the best use of space.
So I think that's kind of the thing I'm excited about. It's the packing part and the organization part.
Us and Juniper and her stuff and our stuff.
And have everything and have extra things and make sure we have all the tools. Because that is one of the things like, it might not come in handy every show, but I do like having certain supplies that are there because as soon as I need it, it's there.
Yeah.
And
we've talked about this before, but we do have our like tote, our plastic tote of like just admin stuff like tape, scissors, pens, markers, extra labels, just like packaging.
And then as we like realize when we do a show, we learn something new every time. Like every show. There has not been a show where I've not walked away and gone, I didn't learn anything today. Like I have like, okay, if I do this is different. If I'm aware of this is going to make it easier. And
it's true. Every show we walk away going, okay, so for our next show, we need to do this instead.
Yeah, it's kind of like we're gaming the game kind of thing. But that is one of the things I'm kind of excited for. And the new people we're going to meet at some of these new shows that we haven't done yet and see what new crowds kind of come through. I am looking forward to our big show if we do get approved for some of the bigger shows again that we've done in the past. I'm excited to get at those again and show off the new stuff we have.
To return to shows and it's like, class reunion or something, like seeing friends again and be like, oh, hey, how's it going? Saw you last year.
But I think that's going to kind of wrap up this episode for you guys on that. I hope maybe we helped you. Maybe we didn't ramble on too long with our nonsense of market stuff. And I hope maybe one of you guys out there gets inspired to potentially try it yourself. Don't be afraid. Just give it a go.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
I would say, and if you're local, please, 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 if you come to any of the markets we're at, come by our booth and say hi.
Guys, we got so close to wrapping up that episode, but Juniper did her thing, interrupted just slightly, but we do want to make sure we wrap up this episode for you guys, and just thank you guys for everyone tuning into the episode. Like, comment, subscribe. If you guys haven't seen it already, go check out our tutorial video. We've got some more tutorial videos coming down the line with all the different things we make and create here in our Steadfast Rebels studio. But again, guys, thanks for watching. We'll see you guys on the next episode.